in a major blow to his foreign policy.
When October 7th happened, you were a defender of Israel's rights to defend itself and the war in Gaza. And your position has changed a lot.
Think of everything you could do with NIB health insurance. You could get a discount on groceries and you could upgrade your cooking. You could save even more with NIB's No Gap Dental and
2 fish, 1 chicken.
really upgrade your cooking.
Hi, Guy. The scooter guy just rang. He's not coming in for another 2 hours, so that's why I was so late.
Let's just start with those discounted groceries. NIB, potentially amazing.
This foreign policy trade negotiation leverage. And I got to be honest, I'm going to cut right to the chase. I'm a huge fan of Trump's tariffs. I'm a fan of his strategies and plans on this one. I think ultimately this will be very, very bad for these United States because we simultaneously have the offshoring of our jobs and our manufacturing with the opening of our borders and the flooding of illegal immigrants. So our low-skilled labor is being shipped overseas while we're getting a flood of low-skilled laborers. This is a recipe for disaster in this country. So, in fact, we're not going to focus too much on that because we have a much bigger story for all of you today. And it is the return to the United States of the legendary Tommy Robinson.
Thank you, Tim. It's good reception.
Who are you? What do you do?
What do I do? Well, I'm a journalist from the UK. I wasn't a journalist always. I was a street activist. I started off in 2009, combating and discussing problems with mass open border immigration, specifically from Islamic nations. I was born in Luton Town, which is 30 miles north of London. When I was born in 1982, there was one mosque. There's now 45. I've seen the change to my town. I've seen the problems. Luton was named by the CIA as the epicenter for terrorist atrocities across Europe. I've seen it all. So I don't talk about what I've read in a book. I talk about life experience. I've seen the loss of freedom. I've seen the two-tier policing. I've seen the weakness and the cowardice by authorities to deal with these gangs. What you've seen is in Minnesota, you know, the little thing you've seen with Somalians. Well, I've watched this my whole life. Yeah? The inability to tackle crimes from a certain community in the town. Kid gloves for every other community. Iron fist for every other community, but kid gloves for the Islamic community. So I've seen lots of problems. I started talking about them in 2009. I formed a street protest movement called the English Defence League. We were pretty lively, I'm not going to lie.
Lively.
Lively is one word. You have to remember at that time, you know, we all now talk about grooming. You've heard about grooming gangs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Grooming gangs is rape jihad. They're not grooming gangs. Grooming is something you do to a dog when you groom it. We're talking about young children being kidnapped, prostituted, raped and murdered in every town and city across the UK.
Hey, PD, good to see you,
and
mate.
we're talking about a conspiracy of silence from police leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, who all knew it was happening but let it happen because rather than offending the Islamic community or how dare they be deemed racist, so police officers didn't want to be called racist. So rather than be called racist, they literally sacrificed a generation of Britain's daughters. I came along in 2009, started making a hell of a lot of noise with a hell of a lot of brave people who took to the streets with us. We took to our streets in our thousands and tens of thousands of time, but we were pretty aggressive on the streets. We had to be. It was never going to be female school teachers or nurses that stood up.
And they have prosecuted and persecuted you just over and over and over again. These stories are crazy. You know, I remember that story where you came out of prison gaunt with a beard. They were denying you food. You were in solitary confinement. We got to talk about it. And your story is a warning for the United States about what happens when it goes too far. We can see what's going on in the UK, and we can see some of it happening in the United States. And we are fighting back against these open border policies, the destruction of our cultural institutions. And we are seeing very similar, you mentioned the Somali stuff. That's not just Minnesota, it's Ohio, it's California, it's Washington. So Tommy, it's amazing to have you here. It's going to be a great conversation. Thanks for joining us. Libby Emmons is hanging out.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm hanging out. Really glad to be here today for this conversation. I'm with the Post Millennial and also my new podcast, which you can check out at thepodmillennial.com.
And to spice things up, we brought Ian.
Ooh, let's get flavorful. Tommy, I thought you were. Well, I didn't think you were racist. I was fully propagandized in 2018 about. There's like, oh, Tommy Robinson's the biggest racist on the planet. I didn't understand the danger of mass migration, and then we can go into Islam and even talk about like radical theology as well. But thanks for being here, man.
It's good to be here, man. I'm honoured to be in America. Do you know how long I've waited to be here? Do you know how much I've wanted to be here?
15 years, right?
Well, I was here in 2011. I got 10 months in jail. I spent 22 weeks in solitary confinement for 2 days in New York.
Wow.
So I stupidly come here on another passport. But I come here to give a warning to America because I wish someone come to my town 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and told us this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. I've experienced it and gave a warning to the people of England 30, 40 years ago. So I felt my message was that important to America. Say, look, we've failed. Britain's failed. France has failed. Germany's failed. It does not work. So you have to stop it now because we'll get onto the discussion of how powerful that migrant base becomes.
Indeed. We got Phil hanging out.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains and the anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Carter?
It's a good introduction.
Dude, thank you so much for coming. I've been following your work for a long time, and it's really good to have you here. I'm very excited for this conversation.
I'm going to start with this story from the AP to kick off the American perspective on what's going on. We have this Supreme Court strikes down Trump's sweeping tariffs, upending central plank of economic agenda. There are a couple things to point out in this story as I think it relates to what's going on with the UK, what you're fighting against, Tommy. And I'll start with, first, Trump has used the tariffs as leverage for the American worker to stop the offshoring of our jobs when we have a dysfunctional Congress and when our low-skill labor and even mid-skill labor is being shipped off to China, to Indonesia, to Mexico. But at the same time, our borders have been open effectively for a decade plus.
Yeah.
And their estimates ranging from...
Yeah, tell you, but it's too late for Britain. It's overrun with Muslims. It's too late.
30 to 50 million illegal immigrants in the United States today. And many people might say, I thought it was 10 to 20. No. 10 to 20 million was the number given during the Biden administration when he opened up the border and flooded this country with non-citizens who then the administration basically killed their court hearings, making them de facto second-class permanent residents. What it looks like Trump is doing, and I say it looks like because it's hard to know for sure exactly what's going on, Trump recognizing that the American way of life is being eroded. You've got, as Tommy pointed out in the intro of the show, the Somali fraud crisis, billions of dollars from American workers and taxpayers being funneled by these Somali migrants and shipped off to Somalia. And it's happening in Ohio, it's happening in California, it's happening in Washington, it's happening all over. The problem here, and beyond this story, because admittedly, Trump says he's got a backup plan, we'll see how this goes, it's breaking news. But here's where I see the risk. And it's a difficult problem to face. Our Supreme Court, the ultimate law of the land, ruled 6-3 against Donald Trump. Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Brett Kavanaugh agreed with Trump's right to issue emergency tariffs under this law. Unfortunately for us, there are two conservatives who are more concerned with appearing factually correct as the sentence is written than doing what must be done to save your country. Now, that's a challenging question that one would pose. But I throw it to everyone's favorite president, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln gets into office and starts cracking skulls. And I'm not even trying to be funny. The man literally pulls a bunch of troops in, says, we're not going to let the South secede. We're going to crush this, suspending habeas corpus, arresting politicians, arresting journalists, threatening to arrest a sitting Supreme Court justice. Lincoln said, this country will not fall under my watch. Now, as much as that's scary, Abraham Lincoln is the most popular president because in a time of great emergency, he used whatever power or maneuver he could to preserve the Union. Now, I'm not going to say that we're at the exact same period in the United States, but when I see a Supreme Court say, there is an interpretation that Trump could issue these tariffs to protect American interests, he says, well, you know what? I know the country's burning down. I know our working class are suffering. I know we're being defrauded, ripped off every which way. But the rules are the rules, so we have to let them do it. And this is the attitude, I think, of a dying nation.
I agree with you.
This is very Buchanan-esque. And so when I look to the story for you, Tommy, I think the UK is much, much, much further along than we are. People are being arrested for things they post on social media. Young girls are getting raped and trafficked, and when the fathers try to stop it, the police arrest them instead. And this is because you have institutions that are more concerned about looking bad than doing what must be done to preserve their country.
Looking bad and power. I just think of my hometown in Luton. We had Vauxhall's car plant was there, and they were allowed to ship off. And it's destroyed the town. 30,000 jobs gone. And I look at Donald Trump, when he was coming in, what he was saying to the car manufacturers, you're not leaving. If you leave, we're going to tax you, bringing the car back in. And I think we needed that. We needed that to protect our jobs in the UK, to protect Luton. If we didn't have an airport, like Luton is rated the roughest town in Britain. Yeah? It's a failing of a town. It's totally gone. 50% Pakistani, Kashmiri, but the town's gone. So I look at what Donald Trump was trying to do for American workers and wish we had someone that cared about our workers or cared about British citizens. But everyone in control of our country at the minute are more cared about global affairs.
It feels like across the West, Europe and the United States, but seemingly most pronounced in the UK, or maybe it does feel like it's mostly the UK, there is an effort to destroy national identity, culture, tradition, a way of life of people. So we see the Biden administration flooding the United States with 10 to 20 million people from all over the world. You know, a lot of people immediately just assume it's going to be Guatemala and Mexico. We have people coming in from Eritrea. They're in Eastern Africa, fly to West Africa, fly to Brazil, and then come to the Mexican-U.S. border to come into our country illegally. Slowly over time, we have seen a really great example of what this does. Polls right now are saying Republicans are bleeding Latino voters over immigration operations. You know what that means? It means that there is a voting population in the United States that is significant enough to cost a party an election who cares more about non-citizens than the citizens of this country. When you keep letting in non-citizens and you give them the right to vote, their interests will lie outside of your nation and it will erode your country.
So in the case of the British, is it just that I'm wondering, and tell me no if I'm wrong, that the royal family, the landowners are like, you know what, we're just going to sell out. We're going to become a corporate arm of the liberal economic order. We're going to become part of this technocratic banking establishment out of Switzerland with the World Economic Forum. They're just like, we're going to sell out our people and our populace. England's a small territory anyway. Our holdings are an overseas value.
I agree.
None of it's a mistake. Your borders weren't open in the way they were at the same time as Canada's, the same time as Britain's, the same time as the whole of Europe's. None of it's a mistake. Literally, they come off 20 metres off the coast of Libya, and NGOs funded by the European Union pick them up, bring them on boats to the next step, and they're funneled the whole way. It's all organised people trafficking. And it's people trafficking to replace voters. So, like, your borders are open. If they get to vote, if you look at the swing states in America, the immigration rate went up 700% by the illegal, 700% in swing states. They wanted to make it so there was no swing states ever again by importing and bringing in voters. Spain's just about to recognise 1.3 million because they're worried about Vox. They're worried about the Populist Party who are against immigration. What do? They give citizenship to over 1 million people. Those million people will vote for them. Now, what they really care about, which we realise, and I can use the rape gangs as an example, all they actually care about is power. So, and I'll give my hometown again as an example. I'm from Luton Town. In 2013, I looked at the demographical change of the communities. In 2030, which was a 17-year period, the Bangladeshi and Pakistani community were going to increase by 70 to 77%. The white and black community by 1.2 to 1.4%. So the Labour Party, your Democrat Party, know that in Luton, the future is the Islamic community. The future's not us. At that point, we're irrelevant. We are irrelevant. So if you even look where they put the Somalis, because when I say they put them, Minnesota, they brought them in. So they brought them in from the hottest place in the world, and they put them in one of the coldest, in America. Why would they do that? That doesn't make sense. Why would they even do that? They do that because they're bringing them in because they want the block vote. They want the block future Democrat vote in this area, in this area, in this area. So they flood these certain places purposely. It's important votes to change the demographic future of a nation. The Republicans would, unless Donald Trump gets rid of the illegal immigrants, and they, under the Biden regime, they're trying to get allowing them to vote. They're allowed to vote in Europe. All of this is happening across Europe. You'll never win an election again.
But let me explain. Are you familiar with the electoral college system in the U.S.?
No.
So we often hear from conservatives that Democrats want illegal immigrants to vote, and they're hyper focused on fraud, and that's not actually the issue. The issue is congressional seats are created based on population size of any type.
Minnesota, there's a lot of seats in it.
Well, so it's not that it's a lot of seats. Using California is a really great example. California, they call themselves a sanctuary state. They're on the border with Mexico, so they basically let illegal immigrants come in. The census happens every 10 years, 2020, 2030, 2040. So they go to California and say, how many people you got? and they don't ask if you're a citizen. So when they're figuring out a congressional district, they get money from the federal government. But here's the thing: AOC's district, Ocasio-Cortez, 775,000 people. How many are actual citizens? We don't know. So what happens is AOC could hypothetically be in a district of 700,000 citizens and 75,000 non-citizens. And she says, and the Democrats say, but they're still my constituents. Now, if you were to remove all those illegal immigrants, they would widen her congressional district and Democrats would lose one seat. So every illegal immigrant counts towards a congressional seat. It doesn't matter if they vote or not. It creates Democrat seats. Now, here's the crazy thing. We don't actually vote for our president. We vote for electors who then go to Washington, D.C. and cast a vote for president. There is one elector for each member of Congress. And then I think we have three for D.C. or does it work? We have 538. So if you put 1 million illegal immigrants into California, California as a state gets one extra vote for president. It doesn't matter if those illegal immigrants vote or not. Just by being here, they get counted. Democrats get extra seats in Congress. And so we end up seeing is, in Congress right now, it is estimated that if you got rid of all the illegal immigrants, they would lose 12 congressional seats, and the Republicans would have a strong majority to control the country. So they flood them in. They place them in areas where they need to displace conservative votes. And the next move they're making, redistricting. They are intentionally now setting up all the blue states. So let me actually show you how this works. It's going to blow your mind. The Illinois congressional map. It's going to blow your mind how we do this. So you guys have the House of Commons, that's what it's called. And I believe that's intended to function similarly to like our House of Representatives, in a sense it represents the people. So this is how we draw our maps on map. Illinois is a great example.
They remapping it.
Yeah. So Illinois doesn't
Doing the same here in the UK.
Yeah, they're making it so that, check this out. Take a look at this district right here. From this weird strip of land that cuts. See this big purple? That's all conservative. This city, Champaign and East St. Louis, and I think you got Peoria in there, they are all hyper-liberal but small populations. So what do? They cut the line through a large swath of conservative territory to create a specific jurisdiction that is 70% Democrat, guaranteeing they get a seat in Congress.
Okay.
Yep.
They're reshaping it in order to support their vote bank.
So
We're doing that in California. There's a lot of conservatives, but the governor just got the people to vote for a law that says they can bypass the California constitutional mandated commission that does the redistricting so that they can eliminate conservative districts by basically folding smaller amounts of conservatives into larger leftist districts. And then that way they basically get rid of the Republicans in California. There's not a single conservative representative from the entire states of New England, even though there's plenty of conservatives.
40%. But so explain to us how the House of Commons and the House of Lords works in the UK.
So we've got 650 politicians. The House of Lords gets selected then and rewarded. Most of them, right now, we're seeing paedophiles being rewarded, criminals being rewarded, the Labour Party.
So it's very similar.
Very similar. Yeah, so if you look at everyone who gets rewarded, it's basically they're wrong. That's how it looks like. Do they get appointed by the government?
The House of Lords?
Yes. So by the Prime Minister selects who goes to the House of Lords, and then they just reward them. So they make deals and agreements in politics, and then they'll get their seat at the House of Lords.
It's like the Senate, kind of our version of the Senate.
Yeah.
Like the 100. Anyway, so
Yeah, that's what it, like the upper house and the lower house.
What I say is a warning to America is you've had immigration for years. And when I used to hear Americans moan about Hispanic immigration. And I just think you've got no idea, if I'm honest, with what Joe Biden's just done. But what's happened over the last decade in the United States of America with the open borders and the 10 million or 20 million, it's not Hispanics coming in. What they've brought in
Lars is looking into the mirror again, guys.
is Afghani, Iraqi, Syrians, Somalis, Eritreans, Sudanese. Now, the way this works different, for example, again, I'll just bring back to my hometown, I've watched it. Luton is a very diverse town. Line up all my friends, we're all sons of immigrants, but no one votes in the military fashion that the Islamic community do.
Right.
So there's 45 mosques, and there's the council of mosques. So the leader of the council of mosques, all the mosques, even though they hate each other, met some of them, they come together with one leader of the council of mosques. He sits down with the government, and he does a deal for the vote. They get 50,000 votes. And literally, when their mosque tells them who to vote, they vote.
Yep.
That's it.
Are you familiar with the revolution in Egypt and how it went down? There were two revolutions.
With the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a really fascinating story. So I'll give you the quick version because I do want you to talk more and tell us all about what's going on in the UK. But they had the first revolution, and it was, I believe, Mubarak gets removed. They had 30 years of military leadership. What happened was you had 7 or 8 secular factions and the Muslim Brotherhood. The problem is all the secular factions were in light disagreement with each other, but they wouldn't line up to vote for one cause. So the Muslim Brotherhood won the election with around 20% of the vote of Egypt. Well, that's a recipe for disaster because 80% of the country opposes the Muslim Brotherhood. Didn't matter. When the Muslim Brotherhood said, you vote for our guy, you vote for our guy, so they always were unified. So they win, and you got Morsi in power, who legitimately won the election, and the second revolution happens. Because all of these people were like, no, we don't want the Muslim Brotherhood to take over. The issue is that most people were decentralized, but the Muslim Brotherhood was organized. And the end result for Egypt to deal with the problem of the fact that no matter what they did, the Muslim Brotherhood would always win the elections because when they say vote, the people say yes. So they went and started gunning them down. That was the end result. I don't think anybody wants that to be what happens, but you can take a look at Egypt. What happens when a majority of the population opposes the ideologically driven unified faction? It comes to violence. That's a scary reality when we're watching this degree and or what you're describing in the UK.
My warning is that they will use democracy to end democracy.
Yeah.
Which is what we're witnessing. We're witnessing.
Charlie Kirk said that Islam is the sword that the left used to slice through.
But yeah, that was his words. And that was pretty much just before he died, before he was murdered. But they, I just don't know if Americans understand the power of that small community when they get organised. And when I say the power, Republicans will bow to them, Democrats will bow to them.
Indeed.
If they're in the swing states, they're all going to bow to them. If they can guarantee the vote, if they can give them the guaranteed vote in that town and that town, and that's what we've seen. And there's an extremist organisation in the UK. It is an Islamist extremist organisation in the UK. And one of their speeches from a mosque, I went through the transcripts of what he was saying, and he said that it doesn't matter if they call us jihadists or extremists, right? Liberals, Labour, and Conservatives will all work with us. We now swing the seat in 15 seats.
Wow.
They need us. Yeah. Now that was 5-10 years ago. If you look at what's happened now with the division in British politics, it's come down to we've just had 5 jihadists, independents. Labour have lost the Muslim vote, it looks like, and it's fragmenting because Labour didn't hate the Jews enough. Labour didn't hate the Jews enough, so the Muslims now they're all calling themselves Greens and screaming out Akbar when they're winning elections. But my warning to America is simply they will organise themselves in a military fashion if they concentrate, and that's what Joe Biden's done. And what they've done is they replaced the working class. So the Labour Party replaced the working class with the loyal, happy to be dependent on the state Islamic community. They're happy. My local imam's got 14 kids and 3 wives, and he doesn't work a day, and we pay for every penny of it. And they're happy. It's a halal life. It's a halal life. They go to the mosque 5 times a day. They live their life. We're paying for all of it. Yeah? And the rates, if you look at the rates of what works and what doesn't work, I can give you the stats for every country in Europe. This does not work. They are importing people who do not work. Yeah, they're not here to work, but they're on benefits. You see, and I think you've just had an amazing wake up. Nick Shirley, well done, son. Yeah. You have had the wake up very quickly. You know, and when you look at the numbers of how many Somalis come into the country, 10 years later can't speak English, you look at the numbers of how many of them are reliant on the state, their kids will be reliant on the state. Studies have now been done in Holland that show not just is the first migration reliant on the state, the second and third migration are reliant on the state.
Really? So
they're not
endemic.
It's endemic. They're not going to work. Yeah, they're not here to work. They're not here to assimilate or integrate. They're here to dominate. Yeah. And that's not every Muslim. Yeah, but the per se. You have to look at the broad numbers, and I'll give you some numbers. Yeah? In the UK, Muslim men make up 3% of the population. They're responsible for 90% of the convictions for rape. 90% from a 3% population. Now, 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. If you go to Sweden, 63% of the rapes, Muslim migrants. There's about 15% Muslim population, but 63% of the rapes. Paris, 77% of the rapes are Muslim migrants. Austria, 48% of the rapes are Muslim migrants. Germany, 58% of the rapes are Muslim migrants. Now, all these things, so migration and immigration is meant to benefit the nation. So if we look in Germany, since Angela Merkel, I just said 58% of the rapes are foreign national Muslim migrants. 11% of the rapes in that country last year were by Syrian nationals. They're from Syria. Their passports from Syria. They're born in Syria. They've been brought into the country. We're told, Germans are told, for diversity. It's not for diversity. You opened your borders, you let a million men in, you didn't know who they were. Just look at the rape statistics that have gone up from 2017 to 2022. The rapes have gone up 45% in Germany. In the UK, 2023 to 2023, our rapes went from 8,800 to 88,000. In a 88,000 rapes, and that's gone
From 8,000 to
8,000
88,000?
88,000. Now you take that same statistic and go another 20 years, you're talking a million rapes, 880,000 rapes, and nothing's going to stop it. Nothing's stopping it. They're not stopping it. The men that are coming in are hostile. An Afghani is 22 times more likely to commit a sexual assault and rape in Britain than any other nationality, than British nationality. Why are they coming in? If migration is meant to benefit, how has the Somali community benefited? How have they benefited coming into America? It's meant to benefit the nation. They benefit the Democrats.
The Somalis have benefited tremendously.
They have, and money goes to Somalia and probably goes back to the Democrat Party.
My question was: are these rapes resulting in pregnancies?
Are they resulting in pregnancies? Yeah,
and abortions?
So I've got three best friends I grew up with who are all their mums are the white girls who were the sexual slave of the Pakistani. That's three of my mates. So they're half Pakistani, don't see their dads. They were babies from rape. That's three of my mates growing up.
This is an extremely well-known and common warfare tactic is rape. Literally, rape. The origin of the word rape and pillage was, I believe it was the Vikings would come, destroy the village, and then take the women. And the word rape comes originally meant to steal, but now it means to force yourself on a woman because that's what was happening in conquest.
Well, the thing is, though, in Islam, if you're a Muslim man and you rape a woman who is not Muslim, that's not considered a crime. That's not considered rape. Those girls are just looked down upon, so they don't care about those girls at all.
To this point, the Independent was just put out an article that said the Taliban has a new penal code that puts husbands on par with slave masters and legalizes domestic violence.
Right? Yeah, I was looking at that this morning. It's crazy.
Let's look at this article for you guys. So, the Independent, new Taliban penal code puts husbands on par with slave masters and legalizes domestic violence. A Kabul-based
Hey, Andrew, good to see you, mate.
legal advisor says it's now impossible for women to get any justice in the Taliban-run courts.
But that's because the Taliban-run courts are based on the Quran and the Islamic teachings, and the Quran says quite clearly, if your wife disobeys you, sit down and talk to her. If that doesn't work, you give her no sex in the bedroom. If that doesn't work, you beat her.
So,
Right.
so real quick, what you're saying is we have a choice between feminism and Islam.
But the feminists are on the Islam side. What's going on?
And what's
going on?
It's worth noting that the left will lose to the
They did in
Muslims,
they did in Iran, but they want to bring down the system.
Maybe the offensive thought is women are tired of these, and I mean this in the political sense, not tribal. Women are tired of these weak, effeminate, liberal guys. And so a Muslim guy comes in, and he's like Myron Gaines, and he's like, shut up, I don't care. Do what you're told. And the women are just like, okay.
I think there's something a little different to it than that. I think that the feminist left in the West never believes that they're going to be impacted by anything negative that's going to happen. Look at Renee Good. She thought she was protected from police violence by her whiteness. She didn't think that anything bad could happen to her. And so I think when you think about leftist Western feminists, they think, okay, we're going to open up everything to all of these Muslims because we're compassionate. And it doesn't occur to them that anything bad is going to happen to them because of it. And they also like to say, that having a woman in burqas and hijabs and niqabs and the rest of it, they say that's their cultural thing. Let them be part of their cultural thing. But they don't actually think that anything is going to happen to themselves.
The only real feminists in our generation are the Persian women in Iran. They're the only real women.
Like Kelly J. Keane.
The only people Kelly. But what I mean is, the only people in our generation who have stood up for women's rights are the ones taking off their hijab and getting killed.
Well, and they're the ones who are saying, hey, Western women, where are you? Why aren't you helping us?
The funny thing is, if we want to be true to the sense of feminism in that protecting women's rights, it's conservative women in the United States, it's these Iranian women protesting, and the quote-unquote feminists, as we describe them, hate women.
That's correct. They hate women.
And you see
they're wearing feminism like.
Have you seen the what they call it? Islam? What they call it? Nemesis. Have you seen the group in? This lad who just got murdered in France.
Quentin.
Yeah.
Quentin Anouche got murdered in France. So he was protecting a women's group in France. There's a new women's group. It's an amazing group. Look them up.
It's called Nemesis.
Nemesis Collective. Look them up. They're on X. They do. There's now 600 of them. So they're women. There they are. They are amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
They're on the street.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry, real quick. Wikipedia says their ideology is anti-immigration, anti-Islam, xenophobia.
Yep.
So the funny thing
These
is,
are real feminists. These are real women's rights.
I know, but xenophobia isn't a political ideology. They put that in there just to insult them because that's what Wikipedia is.
And being concerned with mass immigration or theocratic regimes or extremism religions is not xenophobia. Xenophobia is a blanket fear of external unknown people. It's very different.
Wait.
If you oppose mass,
But say, for example,
Oh,
these
wait.
ladies.
Emo nationalism?
That's what they call them, feminationalists.
Feminationalists.
They call them feminationalists.
Right, let's go.
I just walked through Paris. Did you see? I had a video last week where I walked through Paris with these girls, yeah?
Oh, wow.
With Alice. And as I walked through Paris, Muslim migrants were following us, saying they're going to fuck her, yeah?
Wow.
Threatening her. And this video, it's probably got 800,000 views last week. And as we're walking through, I'm arguing with these migrant men. And then the leader in charge of the government for Paris mocked us in a quote. Yeah? There was a big backlash against them, but absolutely mocked us. Now, 77% of the rapes in Paris, in that city where those women are, the Eiffel Tower now is a rape spot. It's not, you America, if you're listening and you think of Paris and you think of the city of love, it's not there. There is no city of love anymore. There's a hellhole governed and controlled by migrants and violence. It's the same with Berlin. You can fly into Berlin, you won't know where you are. You fly into Paris, you won't know where you are. You fly into London, 33% English. You probably won't meet an English person unless you get in a black cab. And they're trying to get rid of them as well. All of these cities are falling.
Tell me, I remember that viral video of the young girl, I think in Britain, and she pulled out the knives or whatever.
That was Scotland, yeah.
Scotland.
shit in a knife.
And explain the story of what happened. It was massive.
Yeah, she was being threatened by migrants. But this is nothing new. The victim is the victim again by the authorities and the system.
Yeah.
Because they're too scared. So, you spoke earlier. I think just so people can really get the scale of what's been happening in Britain. We had a rape scandal, which was what we started talking about in 2009. It's why they shut us down. And to understand why they wanted to shut us down so bad, if you Google my name, you'll read so many articles, smears, slandering comments by politicians, by media. They despise me. Yeah? The reason why is because they've all got dirty hands. They allowed the rape and prostitution. I done a 5-part series called The Rape of Britain. They're all documentaries where I went to one city, and I went to Telford, and I spent 18 months there, and I got to speak to the survivors, the victims and the survivors who were raped by these gangs. Now, we got, say, 18 girls. I'd interview them for 3 hours, 4 hours, 3 or 4 times, and I built a database of the rapists. Now, the reason why I chose Telford is because Telford only has a 1.7% Muslim population. Now, the police investigation in Telford found 1,000 victims. 5 are dead. 5 are dead in this little town. Yeah, 1,000 victims. So when you take the Muslim population, the police identified 200 rapists in this town. They've only prosecuted 11. So when you see the rape gangs get prosecuted, they're prosecuting. It's like a little gesture. Out of the 200, they prosecuted 11. So the police investigation finds 200. Our investigation found 264. An independent inquiry, found over 300. There's only 1,000 Muslim men. 20% of them, by the police's numbers, have been raping the kids. 20% of them. In this small town of Telford, you've probably heard of Rotherham. Rotherham has 3.7% Muslim population. Yeah, there's none there. 1,400 children raped. Now, what I did is look through all these cities, and that's when we went through the numbers, which is you take the convictions, you take the men convicted, because they make it very hard. We found out how many names are from an Islamic background. You're upwards of 84% of the convictions, up to 90% on Muslim men from such a small community. And the question we need to ask, because if we care about anything, it should be our daughters. You talk about rape being a weapon of war. It's always been a weapon of war. When Boko Haram took 200 Nigerian girls, they told us quite clearly why they'd done it, because Muhammad has commanded us to do it. They're telling you why they've done it. Look what they've done to the Yazidis. Look what ISIS done. What are all these terrorists? Look what the Taliban are doing.
And Tommy, this literally goes back to the founding, like right after the United States got founded, the Barbary Pirates. Their emissary told Thomas Jefferson that the reason they were taking our ships and putting our men into slavery was because the Quran told them that they could.
There's 4 verses in the Quran. One of the verses actually says you're blameless. You can take whatever your right arm possesses, the arm and the sword, outside of your 4 wives, and you can take them as war booty. That's
And
it.
and what did Thomas Jefferson respond with?
The United States Marines
Well,
slaughtered.
he said, "If you do this, I will raise an army and I will destroy you."
And
And then he did.
he did.
Well, but our leaders now are not raising an army to destroy you. They're raising an army to destroy the people who talk about it.
Well, and that's sort of what's going on. If you look into Islam, I remember I had a writer a few years ago, Hattie Martin, and she wrote about this, and she told me something that I found really surprising, which is that there are several stages of jihad. And one of the first stages of jihad is that you go into a place where you are a minority, and when you're a minority, a Muslim population, you behave in a certain way. You take on a victimhood presentation so that people feel sorry for you, and you work with the people around you who are non-Muslim as a way to gain their trust, and then slowly you take over until you're in charge of the entire society, and then you're able to eradicate the people who you claimed to be friends with. You're allowed to pretend to be friends, for example, with Christians, but you're never allowed to actually be friends with Christians.
You know why they do that? Because that's exactly what Muhammad did. In Muhammad's first 10 years of teaching, which is why if we get onto the scripture of Islam, in Muhammad's first 10 years of teaching, he had 300 followers. He was a peaceful man. So all the peaceful verses in the Quran come from the first 10 years. Then he found a winning formula. His winning formula was jihad, war, rape, slavery, piracy. And this is their scripture, not me saying it. And this is where so many Americans will just think, well, Islam's like Christianity, Muhammad's like Jesus. No, Jesus said turn the other cheek. Muhammad said cut their heads off. Muhammad beheaded 600 people in one day. That's what he did. That's their scripture. He stopped Kinana. He tortured a man called Kinana, burnt his chest, took his gold. The evening he beheaded all the men in the tribe. The evening he beheaded them, he took his wife Sophia as his wife that night. He raped her that night. This is the man that they believe is the moral compass for the world. This is why we have so much war, so much jihad. And the problem with them, which people need to realise, is when your borders are open. Say, for example, a Pew Research shows 99% of Afghans want Sharia law. When they get to the American border and they cross in, or when Joe Biden flies them in, when they come in, they don't leave that policy at the border. They bring it with them. So it's like if you think of communism, say Sweden was an entirely communist nation, yeah, and everyone in Sweden supported communism. Well, if you bring 4 million Swedes into the United States of America, there's going to be a drive for communism. This is why you have a drive for Sharia. It's why now you've got so many calls for Sharia. We have 23% of British Muslims, which is a low number considering how they think in the Middle East. But 23% of British Muslims want Sharia law. 23%. Now, 23% of British Muslims is 1 million Muslims. That's 1 million Muslims in our country which overthrow democracy and replaced it with an authoritarian supremacist ideology which subjugates non-Muslims, keeps us as slaves. We become dhimmis in our own nation. Now, all these numbers need to be looked at. I looked at the United States. You've got 26% of Muslims in the United States, from 18 to the age of 29. 45% of French Muslims believe suicide bombing is justified. 35% of British Muslims believe suicide bombing is justified. These numbers are insane. You're talking 1.5 million British Muslims in our country believe suicide bombing is 26% of the Muslims in America. Wake up. Now, those numbers, when you think of 26% of Muslims, it's all right when the numbers are small. Well, I say it's all right. We've got 40,000 Muslims on a terror watch list. 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at a cost of £9 billion. Yeah? The last 5 terrorist attacks in the UK weren't from those in the top 3,000. So when this becomes such a problem, because Manchester, for example, after the Ariana Grande concert attacks where 26 children were blown up by Salman Abedi, you know, if we had a Trump-style ban, you know, he banned certain countries, red flag countries. If we had that, then those children would still be alive. Yeah? 220 who were murdered in France and Germany would still be alive for that simple ban. Now, how much opposition or names Donald Trump gets called, that ban keeps you safe. Yeah, from bringing terrorists into your nation. It's not a game of, if you had a pack of Skittles or a pack of sweets and you said, pick those sweets, one of them's going to kill you. You wouldn't pick a sweet.
No.
Now, with mass immigration from these Islamic nations, literally, some of them are going to kill you.
Yeah.
They're going to rape your women in mass numbers. We're literally being raped and pillaged across the whole of Europe.
I mean, it's not a stretch to think that out of the 20 million illegal immigrants that were let in during the Biden administration, there was 100,000 people brought in that hate America and want to do bad things.
More.
More.
Let
me read this while you guys are talking. I pulled up a quick little blurb on what happened with Jefferson in the Barbary States, and this is very interesting. Thomas Jefferson didn't make a single famous direct quote to the Barbary pirates. However, he was deeply involved in the U.S. dealings. The most notable came in March of 1786 when Jefferson, he was the current minister to France, and John Adams to Britain, met in London with the Tripoli ambassador, envoy Sidi Haji Abdurrahman, they inquired why Tripoli claimed the right to attack American ships despite no provocation or injury from the U.S. The ambassador explained that it was founded on Islamic law as written in their Quran. All nations that had not acknowledged the Prophet were sinners, and it was the right and duty of the faithful to plunder and enslave them. He added that any Muslim slain in such warfare was assured paradise, and described boarding tactics that terrified enemies into surrender. Jefferson and Adams reported this in March 28, 1786 letter to Secretary of Foreign Affairs John Jay, noting the ambassador's demands for tribute around 30,000 guineas for a perpetual peace with Tripoli, plus his personal cut paid in cash, no goods accepted. Jefferson was skeptical of paying tribute from the start, viewing it as an ineffective and likely to encourage more demands. In private correspondence and proposals, he advocated force over tribute, arguing war would be cheaper and more honorable long-term than endless payments. He wrote things like referring to, quote, effect a peace through the medium of war, and calculated that building a navy to fight would cost less than ongoing tribute. As president in 1801, when Tripoli's Pasha demanded higher tribute then declared war by chopping down the U.S. flagpole in Tripoli, Jefferson refused payment and sent U.S. Navy warships to the Mediterranean. He authorized aggressive action to chastise their insolence by sinking, burning, or destroying pirate vessels. This led to the First Barbary War, the U.S.'s first overseas conflict, ending with a treaty where tribute was minimized or phased out for Tripoli. A slogan often linked to this era, millions for defense but not 1 cent for tribute, is frequently misattributed to Jefferson. It actually originated from Congressman Robert Goodloe Harper in 1798 during the XYZ affair, a separate dispute with France, though it captured the anti-tribute sentiment Jefferson embodied in his Barbary policy. I absolutely love this because I will stress, today, the American policy for kidnapping in the Middle East is you will get not a single penny from us. We will show up with special forces at 3 a.m. in night vision goggles, and we will kill everyone you know. And so what happens is, if you are European and you are in North Africa or the Middle East and you're kidnapped, they smile. These people will take you, they find you, they smile and say, we're about to get paid millions of dollars. When they find an American, they say, no. We don't touch the Americans because we like being alive. Now, the ISIS did change this when ISIS started to rise up. They said, try us, we don't care. And no longer were Americans basically receiving the benefit of these not a penny for tribute tactics.
No, the tribute tactics, that's the jizya, that's them asking for money, which again is in Islamic scripture. You convert, you convert, you leave, or you give us money.
That's right.
You become a dimatu, you become under us, and you give us money to live.
Well, and they also say, part of it is if you convert, then you can be part of our raiding squads and you can get some of this plunder as well.
Rewarded as well.
You know, and that's part of it. What I find sort of amazing about the European situation that has open borders to Islamic, extremists all over the Middle East and the rest of the world. What's crazy about that is Europe literally fought like hundreds of years of war to keep Islamic people out of Europe.
I went through.
And now it's just like, okay, well, instead of fighting you guys, we're just going to open the door and let all the hordes in. But I mean, the Crusades were hundreds of years of fighting.
Is this not just very similar to the fall of Rome?
The difference here is he's not talking about Islamic interpretation. He's just talking about Islam. Yeah? He's not talking about interpretation. Now, I went through, Islam is the religion of peace, the phrase. Do you know that was never said in history?
Well, it's not real.
Until George W. Bush. Try and find that by anyone. By a historian, by an academic, by an Islamic scholar. Try and find the phrase, Islam is a religion of peace, by anybody in the world before George W. Bush. George W. Bush said it, and then it was said 1,000 times and 1,000,000 times, and now it's repeated as a matter of fact. Now, William Gladstone, I went through trying to find, the leaders of a country? It's their job, like Thomas Jefferson, to warn the public of danger. Now, all leaders, military leaders, political leaders, throughout America and Britain's history, have warned about Islam. Not warned about the interpretation of Islam. Sir William Gladstone held the Quran above his head in the British Parliament and said, there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book. He didn't talk about an interpretation of the book. He talked about the book, the Quran. That's what he spoke about. Winston Churchill said, Islam in a man is like rabies in a dog. He explained that individual Muslims show amazing traits. This is his words. Individual Muslims show amazing traits, but Islam will bring Europe back to the Dark Ages. So all of our leaders understood Islam. And they spoke openly about Islam. Now, if we had no Muslims in Britain, I'm sure our leaders would still talk openly about it. But what we have now is 5,000 Muslims who are hostile and ready to go to violence at the click of a finger. Since they rioted in 2002 in the UK and they burned cities, it went from Bradford, it went to Oldham, it went to multiple cities. Since then, our government have got on their knees and get them concession after concession after concession. They have pandered to mob rule of violence and threats of violence, and they're weak. It's happening in Sweden, it's happening in France. We now have a Europe that doesn't know how to deal with this problem. And rather than deal with it, like American leaders would have done, they just surrender to it. And they try to appease and they try to appease. And they continue doing that. So
How much of this has to do with the West, Europe, and America just having no value for their own culture or religion?
it's filled a vacuum. So
Great question.
I believe all of this. I believe the attack on the family, the feminisation of men, the weakness, the breakdown of community, even the British pub. Look at the British pub. The British pub is the heartbeat of British culture. Yeah. Now, when we formed the English Defence League in 2009, we formed from the pubs. We built a movement of men from the pubs. We got men together, and men sit in pubs and they discuss the problems. How are we going to deal with these problems? It's somewhere where you can come together and you can build that community. The pubs are gone.
That was like pre-Revolutionary War in New England.
The pubs are gone.
The
The pubs
pubs.
are gone.
Why are the pubs
Even
gone?
I think the pubs are gone. They're closed. Even the Labour government. I've done a piece on it recently where I went into a local pub in a town where all the other pubs are closed, and I asked the people in there, when this closes, what does it mean for you? They said it means everything. This is where we meet.
Why are they?
Well, they're closing because I'd say it's an effort by the government to make sure that we do not have centres. They don't want you community-based. They don't want you together. They want you broken, isolated, fragmented, and on your own. They want you isolated. That's how they want you. Now, if you can have community, every pub that we use through the English Defence League, they're gone. They've closed them all down. Now, this is happening. If you look, there's another 2,000 pubs going to close this year in Britain. Wow. They're closing. They're disappearing.
Can you open more, or do they not give you permits?
They're making it impossible to finance them. The taxes. The Labour government have just made more policies now. They come in April when many more of them are going to have to close. Now, this is purposely done. They are breaking the community as they bring in mass immigration. I can tell you, I've seen it in my own town. As they bring in mass immigration, we flee, we leave. The community's broken. I used to walk down the street. I'd hug everyone. I'd know everyone. We'd all know the families. We'd know everyone. So when you have a strong community like that, you can build and you can get together. And if you want to resist something, you can resist it. Now, and when you bring strong men together, men who know who they are, they know their identity, and they know where they've come from, they know their history, they'll fight for it. You break all those things, you've got a country full of people who don't know who they are. They're walking around with blue hair. They don't know if they're a man or a woman. It's all an attack.
I have a question about all this because I pulled up, we were talking about the Hadith. Ian, would you like to read that quoted portion?
Yeah, but it's too blurry for me from here.
Can't see it.
No.
Phil, would you like to read the
The
quote?
hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, "O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him."
You know that's in Hamas's chart, yeah?
Is it what?
That's in Hamas's chart.
It's in Hamas's charter.
That's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Hamas's chart. So
They removed it recently, saying like,
a few years ago, after the hoo-ha come out and everyone knew that this is what Hamas is about. Hamas don't talk about Zionists, they talk about Jews. The final day of judgment will not come till every Jew is dead.
yeah, and
Hamas were elected by the people of Palestine. They were politically elected, whether you trust it or not. There's never been an election again from it, but they were voted in by a majority. There was two groups. There was Hamas, there was Fatah, both terrorist organisations, both want the destruction of the Jews, both want the killing of the Jews, and they are the party that many in the Western countries' politicians now are supporting. And they're supporting them to appease the bloc Muslim vote. The community.
I have no problem with people criticizing the government of Israel, and even their military. By all means, even the culture, whatever you have to criticize. But what's fascinating to me is we have feminism hates Israel, like the left hates Israel, hates the Jews. Israel is often used as an excuse, where we have seen this massive explosion of Jew hatred across social media. And I'm sorry, I look at what's going on with this mass migration, with Islam, which is a religion explicitly telling their people to go and kill all of the Jews. And I'm curious why the Jews who are in control of everything haven't just stopped this.
Well, even the LGBTQ groups.
Jews that are, you mean like the international?
The point is, if the left, no. I'm saying that somewhat ironically.
Yeah, that's what I'm
The
asking.
left makes the argument the Jews run and control everything.
Right.
Meanwhile,
But they can't.
they're not doing a very good job at all.
Right,
If
exactly.
they control the media, they're not doing very good.
Why is it that you, Tommy, were put
Hi,
in
Phil,
solitary
good to
confinement
see
on
ya.
multiple occasions? You've been falsely accused of crimes. They've lied about you incessantly in all these different media organizations, and then I'm told that it was the Jews who did it, not Islam.
Within the last 12 months, I've spent seven months on solitary confinement. I've been found not guilty of a terrorist trial. They charged me under terrorism legislation for nothing. My last two cases, the judge's rulings were this was politically targeting. You're harassing him, you're persecuting him. That's the judge's comments in my last two cases. I wish I had the and God bless Elon Musk, because Elon Musk funded my lawyers for my last two cases.
Wow.
Otherwise, I'd be convicted. I'd be sitting here now as convicted terrorist. Well, I wouldn't be here, would I? Because I'd never.
You're gonna hang out with him?
I'd love to hang out with him. I'd love to shake his hand to thank him for Elon Musk has given.
Have you reached out to him?
I've sent just a message. I speak to his lawyer, so I've just sent a message to his lawyer to thank.
That has to happen. Or you'd be an amazing sit down.
Are you cleared out now in the UK? Can you just live and work there and do what you do and not be harassed?
I face 10 years on the 26th of October.
They're going to.
I'm on trial on the 26th of October, and I face a 10-year prison sentence.
For what?
So when the riots kicked off in the UK, and remember they
Is this the Southport stuff?
Southport riots, yeah, which I wasn't involved in. I wasn't in the country. In fact, all of my
You spoke
videos,
about it though, didn't you?
all my videos
Yeah.
called for calm,
Yeah.
and peace. Now, what the media did from the very first day of the riots, the police officer come out and blamed the English Defence League. Now, I led the English Defence League. It ended a decade ago. There hasn't been an English Defence League. So as soon as I saw them mention English Defence League, I thought, oh no, it's coming in. They're sticking this on me. They're going to put this on me. And then they start coming out and blaming an organised far right. Now, since there's been full investigations that have said there was no link to any far right, it was local people rioting. But at the time they done this. Now, when they done this, the country's burning. Yeah, and the country's burning because the people have had enough. What they don't tell you is in each, say like Hull, there was trouble in Hull on the streets outside the hotel. They don't tell you that a Muslim migrant who has come into our country as a refugee was put in a hotel, come out and stabbed a pensioner to death while shouting about Palestine. They don't tell you there was a terrorist attack in town when there was trouble in Tamworth. They don't tell you Mohammed left the hotel and raped an English woman. Each city where there was trouble, people are angry for a reason. Yeah? The people who are being housed in our country are in hotels. There's been 25 children sexually assaulted. There's been murders. There's been rapes by the people we're putting in hotels. So there's a lot of anger in the country. But what they've done is, as the riots kicked off, and they celebrate this, they give themselves an award. They changed the image of the riots from that summer to a picture of me on the sunbed. So I was away with my family. I was away with my children, and I don't get many breaks. I live since 2011. I got my first Osman warning in 2011. I've got a video of my phone where the police knocked on my door and said, "Al Shabaab want to kill you." It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They told me and my wife, she's had ones, they're going to attack you with acid. There's plans to hurt you and kill the kids. I've had 11 or 12 official government warnings. The most recent one was last week. The police come to me last week and said, you've been named in ISIS's magazine this month that they've released to be killed. We cannot protect you, and you cannot take steps to protect yourself. Yeah. So to Americans,
Why?
you're not, because I'll get done for carrying a weapon. We're not allowed weapons. We're not allowed to carry weapons.
So you're just supposed to let
Even
yourself get
screwdrivers,
killed?
right?
Nothing. There were 4 times as many British Muslims went to fight for ISIS in a 3-year period than have ever joined the British military in 50 years of them being in the country.
And they're taking the ISIS brides back too.
We've had 2,000 of them come back.
Mhm.
And in my hometown in Luton, I know those kids. I went to school with them. Yeah. So they're walking around my town. So when people talk about terrorism and jihad, no, I'm standing next to them in the bank. Well, I'm not in the bank anymore because all the banks closed me down. But that's what's happened. So ISIS fighters come back, 40,000 terrorists on the watch list, and then we have to leave. The police told me, leave. We cannot protect you. Leave.
Have you considered doing that and becoming an American citizen?
No. So people told me to do this and try and claim asylum. I feel that would be turning my back on my country. I feel that the fight for me is Britain. I wish I had safety for my family. I wish my family was somewhere where they're just safe. That's what I wish. But
But it's your
for
country.
the last 3 years, I've been hiding in different European countries.
I think
I don't live in the same place. For the last 7 months, I've lived in hotels. I go from hotel to Airbnb to hotel to Airbnb, and I do that because I don't have 24. I don't have security. I have no security, so I don't have 24-hour day security. But when the police, to Americans, do not give up your guns. Do not become disarmed like us. Do not get into a position where your government and police are not there to protect you. They didn't protect anyone during the riots. Muslims were coming out during the riots, armed with swords, armed with machetes, attacking people, jumping people. If it wasn't for Elon Musk buying eggs, no one in Britain would have even known any of this.
I think after we liberate Canada, we will then go.
Liberate the UK.
The UK is next, and we will be greeted as liberators.
Some people will fully Einstein fled Germany to protect Germany from the Reich, from Hitler's Reich. Basically, he didn't. I don't think he turned his back on the Germans. He
wait, hold. He didn't. He fled.
Einstein fled Germany when they broke into his apartment.
Indeed, and how is that protecting Germany?
Well, he wanted to fix the country, but he couldn't do it from within because they were going to destroy him if he stayed there.
Saved in the
So
US.
he helped make nuclear bombs and the war.
Yeah, and then,
I felt bad about that.
and then
But I feel you on that, Tommy. you know, our country has been in a bit of disarray, and I don't feel like I would ever leave this country. This is my country.
You know, I felt the calmest. I've been here 24 hours. I said I feel calm. I don't feel calm when I'm in Europe.
That's
Don't feel calm.
awful.
And the media track down where I am and tell people where I am. So what happens? My newest court case. I'm on holiday with my kids. Been there 24 hours. Next day, headline in the Daily Mail. They name the hotel I'm in. They tell them what hotel I'm in. They put pictures of my family in the national newspaper. I'm looking at it. A Muslim made a video of a machine gun saying they're going to kill me. Another Somali pirate in the UK made a video saying he's going to kill me. All these death threats are coming in. Police knock on my mum and dad's door, so they don't just threaten me. They knock on my mum and dad's door, give them an official warning. You need to leave. We can't keep you safe, to my mum and dad. So I fly my mum and dad out of the country. All of this is going on, and I look up the journalist names who run this story. There's no need to picture my family. There was no need to give the location. You could have run. I don't care about them chatting shit about me and lying about me and bullshitting about me. The headline was Tommy Robinson stokes riots from his sunbed. I didn't stoke any riots. I was calling for calm. So it's a lie. I don't care about your lies. You've done it for over a decade, 15 years. You've targeted me with your lies. But I do care when you're jeopardising the safety of my children. Yeah, I had to leave, so that I had to go into a hotel room. The next day, 6 different groups of men turned up at the hotel. This is in Cyprus. Turned up at the hotel. The manager said, "Please stay out of the way. We've got men turning up asking where you are. We've got all this going on." So I then sent private investigators, and I put a message online saying to the journalists who have endangered my family, "I'm a journalist. You're in my story now, and I'm coming to find you." Yeah. And the camera's going in. So I made it very clear, not violence. A camera's going in your face. You're going to answer questions on camera how you think this is legitimate journalism. And I made a point. So I sent cameras to find them, and I got pictures of them coming out of their houses. Yeah. And I published a picture of them. I cut out. I blurred the images of their family. I didn't show them. Yeah. I blurred the images of their houses, and I put a picture of them. I said, "You know what? I'm a journalist with morals. I will never. You know, I've got pictures of your family. Yeah. I will never show an image of your family. I'm never going to the family reading this, I'm never going to let anyone know where you live. But you know I found you. You know I'm coming to find you. So what you need to do is you need to contact me for my story and answer some questions." The plea, I faced 10 years for this. So they were allowed to...
They were allowed to do that, but you faced 10 years for that?
The media are a weapon of a totalitarian state. The judiciary is a weapon. They're all tentacles of a totalitarian state that is right now crumbling. So this may sound bad. All the stuff I sound is depressing. Don't be too depressed, because Britain is on the rise. There is a cultural revolution brewing in Great Britain right now. We have an event on September 13th. It was the biggest event in British history. Millions descended on a capital city. I felt for decades like I'm banging my head against a wall with Britain. Right now, I don't. Every street I walk down, everywhere I go, I get a hero's reception. I get a reception, but I get to see the passion in the British public to how they now see it. They see it. I get
want their country back.
It's happening.
What do you think about Rupert Lowe?
Rupert Lowe is our Trump.
Yeah.
Rupert Lowe is the only political figure that will save Britain. Do not believe any bullshit about
Okay, I'm glad he likes Rupert Lowe, because I do too.
Nigel Farage. He's weak. These are Nigel Farage's comments, yeah? So don't believe. Nigel Farage's comments are, by 2050, the Muslim population is that dominant in the UK that we cannot alienate them, or we will never win an election. That's his comments. Now, we know that it's coming. So that's why we need to stop them. Yeah, we can't get into a position where we have to bend and cower to an Islamic supremacist group because we're worried about offending them because we won't win an election. So Nigel is already putting up the white flag. Rupert Lowe won't put up the white flag. Rupert Lowe is the solution to our problems. Restore Britain is a new political party, 80,000 members this week, and Nigel has sold us out. He's betrayed us. Our next Home Secretary, if Nigel wins, is Zia Youssef, a Muslim. Our next Mayor of London under Nigel's Party of Reform is Layla Khan, a Muslim. Yeah. So. And why is that a problem? People say, why is that a problem? If it was a seat, would it be a problem? Because Muslims will tell you Islam comes first, second, and third, right? Not democracy, not rule of law, not the non-Muslim community, not any of it. It all that matters is Islam. Now, when you understand the teachings of Islam, well, non-Muslims are treated second citizens. They're subjugated. That the teachings is a supremacist mindset. Doesn't mean every Muslim follows that, but if they believe in the teachings of Islam and follow the teachings of Islam and the word of Islam, we have the problem. But I do say it in optimism. Something huge is happening in Britain.
I want to explain why I think it's so important for Britain to survive, and it's because I'm a big fan of baked beans, mushrooms, tomato, blood pudding.
No baked beans. I went for my breakfast in the hotel. I put it. That's
America.
I tweeted, "Where's my baked beans?"
But here's my point. That I actually am a huge fan of the British breakfast. I love it way more than the continental, the full English. Incredible. What?
You had white pudding.
Probably.
Black pudding, it's Irish, and my mum's Irish. But in Ireland, it's white pudding and black pudding.
Oh.
That's when Irish.
See, a lot of people don't like the blood pudding. I love it. And the point is this. I want to be able to visit London and see what Britain has always been, to learn of the history. We share a history here in the United States. And I feel the same way for Somalia. I would like Somalia to be a stable, beautiful country where you can see the ocean without fear of piracy and a stable government. I want that for all people's self-determination for their country. I agree with the left when they complain about colonization. Right. The only problem is they're not actually advocating against the crushing of culture and decolonization. They're saying, I hate white people.
Well, and that's what they're doing. We saw AOC in Munich last week, and she was over the weekend, and she was talking about how whiteness doesn't exist and white culture is the problem and all of this stuff. And it's like, well, everything that she's railing against is what has allowed her to be a congresswoman representing New York. And she doesn't care about that at all. And she was saying how there's no such thing as whiteness after decades of complaining about whiteness. And now she says, go back to your original heritages. And she doesn't believe in that either.
Most of this has happened, it's our own fault as well, at the same time, because we've lost our culture. We've lost our identity. Again, you don't have to be a Christian or believe in Jesus Christ to understand that the foundations of built our country is Christian principle foundations.
J.D. Vance spoke about that.
This is what built Britain. And there is, do you know, I stood in on the 27th of July. We met 2 years ago. We bought 10, 15 influencers, if you want to call them, Katie Hopkins, Lawrence Fox, Carl Benjamin. We brought all the people who have been attacked together, and we sat around the table for 2 days, and we said, right, lads and lasses, Jordan Peterson flew in. We spoke about if you change the culture, you change the politics anyway. Yeah,
that's right.
So our goal was we can try and start a political party. You need hundreds of millions of pounds, or we can change the culture on the streets of the UK. Yeah. So we got 15 people together. You've got 1 million followers. You've got 500,000 on TikTok. You're big on YouTube.
Hey, on Ultra. Thanks for nothing.
The whole world is not going to thank you, everybody. 3, 2, 1.
Zero cards, zero counting. Thanks for nothing, on Ultra.
Every AA Teams group tour through Australia and New Zealand is built to draw you in. This isn't just a trip, it's travel that stays with you. Extraordinary landscapes, flavours shaped by the land. You don't just see it, you feel it. Every destination, worth every cent. Discover more at aatkings.com.
Need to tow or carry heavy loads? For a better journey, upgrade your suspension and brakes with Petters.
Need a bigger bed? Buy any size mattress at Bedshed and you'll only pay the price of a single. Plus, get a bonus.
What difference does Australian mining make? Well, according to the latest government data, Australian mining...
We can reach, if we all come together, at the click of a button, we're going to reach bigger than any media outlet in this world. Yeah, just overnight. If we agree on 5 principles, we don't have to agree on everything, because when you bring people together, we all know it's difficult to get all these egos in one room. Yeah, everyone's got an ego, whether they say they have or not. Everyone wants it about themselves at some point. So when you brought them together, so let's agree on 5 things: free speech, against mass immigration, against sexual exploitation of children. Just these little principles. Can we all agree? And what's important to us? Judeo-Christian culture is important to us as a country. So we agreed on these 5 points and said, right, now we're going to go out and we're going to hold the first celebration of identity. And let's not make it against something, let's make it for something. We have not been able to be pro-British. It has become cool to convert to Islam. All the boxers are converting, all the youth are converting, and that's happened because a void is there. A void where we've lost our Christian identity and our Christian culture. Right now, there is a revival happening for Christianity. And I'm standing watching in Trafalgar Square. We held our first event, which was on the 30th of June, which was in London, and 30,000 people turned up. And we had a gospel band, and we had a celebration of identity. It was beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful. But what we did at that first event is we gave tickets to YouTubers and TikTokers and podcasters. So not the mainstream media. We brought them in and we celebrated them. And as we had 800,000 people watching live online, thanks to Elon Musk again on X, we got them up and said, introduce yourself. Yeah. So these TikTokers got up and they were like, what? I said, get up on the crowd and give us your channel. How do people follow you? How do they support you? How do we get away from these traitors, mainstream media? We need to become the media. This is the biggest battle, is media. We need to become the media. Citizen journalism, I say mainstream media is the cancer, citizen journalism is the cure. We need to beat them. At that first event, we had 30 that we gave invites to. At the next event, which was 6 weeks later, 100,000 people turned up, which at the time was the biggest patriotic gathering London's ever seen. Yeah, and then 100,000 people are there. and the whole crowd is chanting Christ is King. And I'm standing watching thinking, I don't even think most of you believe Christ is King. So something's happening here. And as I'm watching it, I'm feeling it. And I felt it I went to Poland in 2015. When I went to Poland in 2015, I went for their Independence Day when 250,000 Polish marched. And I remember standing at the front of the march. And my hair's in the back of my neck standing up now, thinking about it. And I felt energy as they were all together for a common cause, for their country, for their identity. And they didn't care. They were unashamed. They were unapologetic. They were celebrating history of Poland. And when I looked at Poland's history and understood why they feel this way, they've always been outnumbered every battle 40-1. They've been off the map. They've fought communism. It's in their last generation to understand what it's like not to have freedom. And I stood there and felt jealous. I left and thought, we don't have this in Britain. We've lost this. Well, I wish for this. And on the 27th of July, I stood in Trafalgar Square, and I remember standing and I felt it. I thought, oh my God, this is what happens when people come together. This is people power. So we went from the 27th of July, and then at our next event on the 13th of September, which is now, if you look at the aerial shots of it, the biggest event Britain's ever seen, we had 185 citizen journalists. I'm going to invite you now, Tim. Please come, 16th of May. Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone. We want the work. 66 million people watch that demonstration. The most watched demonstration. 66 million eyes on that demonstration. The media now are irrelevant. So that the Guardian come out and run pieces, and they all run these pieces. That was the biggest celebration, but it was a celebration of British identity, culture, celebration, and our organisation is called Unite the Kingdom. I didn't do this. Those coming together of 15 people who have been silenced, betrayed, slandered, demonised. Carl Benjamin, all these influencers who come together and said, lads, we need to change culture.
I feel like they would let me in.
No, they let you in.
You think so?
Well, if they don't, do you see they banned Eva Vandenbroek?
Yeah. Yep.
They banned Eva Vandenbroek. But when they do this,
she said a lot less than I did.
But when they do this thing, when they do this, it's great. I say it's great.
Show the world.
It show the world. Yeah. Like I went to jail last year for playing my film. I intentionally played my film. I knew. I went to court. I made a documentary. The documentary was far bigger than my story. It was about the weaponization of the judiciary. It totally proved the corruption of the judiciary. Why is that important? Because it's been used against Donald Trump. He'd be spending the rest of his life in jail if he didn't win the election. It was used against Alex Jones. It's used against Katie Hopkins. In fact, Google any politician in Europe who stood against the European Union, Geert Wilders. If you look at Morten Messerschmidt, leader of Danish People's Party, look what they've just done to Le Pen. Any of them, they've been hit by the courts. So they target you, they weaponize the courts, they do this. So I played my film.
Let me ask you, too. They forced his hand because they used the corrupt judiciary to try and strip him of everything he owned.
Thanks to Elon Musk, that doesn't work now because the world's eyes are watching. So I keep saying, when I played my film, they took me to court and they said, if you ever show anyone, I had covert recordings proving corruption. If you ever show anyone like this, you get 2 years in jail. On the 27th of July in central London, 100,000 people, million watching on live. I played the film. I said, now send me a jail. Come and send me a jail. And they did send me a jail. It got 167 million views, that documentary.
I want to ask for your advice real quick on this because you said May 16th?
May 16th, please, Tim.
So
in your eyes.
I used to travel all the time, especially when I worked at Vice. And the standard policy was usually fly under the radar. When you approach the border checkpoint, just be as vague as possible. Like, what are you here for? Just checking things out, probably film a little bit. You see how it goes. When I went to go interview Kim.com in New Zealand, they intentionally set me up with a second interview so that if I was asked, because it's a small country, why I was there, I would say, we're interviewing this person. And it's true. I don't need to bring up Kim.com. They may have turned me around. In this instance, I think I'm way too high profile. So if I went, I would have to say, I am here for Tommy Robinson.
What I'd say is, I heard Keir Starmer in the Oval Office, and he talked about the freedom of speech in Great Britain, so I'm here to experience that freedom of speech.
You said the
I'm going to say naughty things in your country.
The things that you said that stand out to me, people are saying that Christ is king. How does the actual emperor feel about that? Not that you can speak for Charles, but the king of England, the king of the emperor.
Charles.
Yeah. How does Chucky feel about other people saying we're going to serve
Lord? How did you feel about the Queen?
I love the Queen.
It is kind of sad.
I love the Queen. Prince Charles is a traitor. He is World Economic Forum. He's all this global
homogenization.
Yeah. Hold on. Do you think
he loves Sharia?
Tommy,
He's in Qatar's pocket.
Do you think his heir will be better?
Yes, I like Prince William and I like Kate. Yes, he should have skipped Prince Charles. Prince Charles has always been politicised. He's always been weak. He's in bed with Qatar. Look, Qatar. We talked about the Muslim Brotherhood revolution earlier. Yeah. There would never be a Muslim Brotherhood if it wasn't for Qatar. There would not be Hamas if it wasn't for Qatar. There wouldn't be an Al Qaeda if it wasn't for Qatar.
What can William do? Like, let's say Charles advocates whatever.
I think they need to recognise, which is happening anyway, with or without them, what we've done now. You see, the cultural celebration, we held a celebration at Christmas called Christ is King. Now, they've took Christ out of Christmas in the UK, and this is where America, I know you've got your Bible Belt here, yeah? Stick to your Christian principles. Do not allow it to be eroded like Britain has, because a void is then filled with, whether it be communism, Marxism, LGBTQ, Islamism, all these things fill this void. And then you have a broken people who are lost without any identity or any structure. And that's what's happened to us. Broke the family, broke the community, broke the spirit, broke Christianity. The church leaders do not represent us. So when I was leading the English Defence League, six local councils, six councils across the country changed the name of Christmas. Winter Festival, Winter Celebration.
Yeah.
So there's 360 councils in the UK. So I sent them all a letter saying, my name's Tom Robinson, leader of the English Defence League. When we come to your city, it costs £500,000 to £1 million to police our demonstrations. You have to board up the city. Yeah. If you take the word Christ out of Christmas this year, and if you Google this, put Tommy Robinson blackmailed council Christmas. Yeah. If you take the word Christ out of Christmas, we're coming. Yeah. And it will be accused of blackmailing Christmas letter, yeah? So I sent every council this letter, and I basically said, I'm not blackmailing. But what I realised, I learned from the Muslims, yeah? On this issue, I learned, and it works. Wow. And unfortunately, when you've got a group behind you who can bring places to a standstill, they bend. Now, out of 360 councils, after we sent that letter, how many do you think took the word Christ out of Christmas that year? Not one.
Not one?
Not one.
I was going to say maybe 5.
Not one. And I then left the English Defence League in 2014 because I felt that the way we were managing ourselves, conducting ourselves, I felt a bit embarrassed. As I've grown up, I feel embarrassed.
He is a Muslim, Andrew. We saw that as well. That big dinner he set up at Ramadan Forum.
See, I went to a group in Germany called Pegida, and I saw the peaceful way they conducted themselves, the orderly way they conducted themselves. Some of our supporters were there for a day out, not there for a cause. It meant so much to so many different people. So I've grown up and I've learned that a better way to get our message across. But back then, 2014, they didn't do it. Then a shopping centre put in, the Saudi sort of toilets where you got a hole in the ground. So I contacted the shopping centre. I said, you've got a week to put toilets in. Yeah, you're in Great Britain. What are you putting holes in the floor for?
Yeah,
put a toilet in. In a week, they put the toilets in. My local town, Luton Town Centre, in my shopping centre, they were opening a mosque in the shopping centre. So I went into the shopping centre. There's a family bakery called Robbie's. It's been there 40 years. I went up to, and the mosque was going to be next door to it. I said, have you been consulted about this mosque? They said, no. I said, what do you think? I said, what do you think we think? If outside every mosque is 50, 60 men. Said our business is going to end. So I went into the Turkish Muslim-owned business, another restaurant near there. So what do you think, lads? They said, last thing we need is a mosque.
Wow.
I went around all the businesses. What do we think? So no one had asked for it. No one had been consulted. So I said to the leader of the shopping centre, I said, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut your shopping centre down every Saturday. Literally, you're going to get no trade. I'm going to bring this town to a standstill in Luton because I had the power to do that at the time because I had an army of men behind me. I said, that's what we're going to do. So if you dare to open that mosque, they never opened the mosque.
Wow.
Now this is what the Islamic community do. They just threaten them. So they threaten the government pander. The government bow. So
it's what we see here in the United States when you have the right and the conservatives. I'll give you the example of this. I don't know if you saw the incident where the fat kid punched the pro-ICE kid. Big story, probably not that big for you guys over in the UK, but here there is a kid in a school in Illinois, just outside Chicago, holding up a sign saying, "I support ICE." A fat kid comes in and says, "I'm going to punch you in the face," and then he's like, "You're going to get in trouble," and then the kid punches him in the face, and the kid who gets hit says, "You're going to get in trouble." This is the problem I see. And I'm not trying to disrespect this kid who was saying he supported ICE, but the right gets punched and just says, that's not allowed. But here's the thing. You got to defend yourself. Say, don't punch me, otherwise a fight will begin. We are allowed to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
The point is, the police, the administrators don't want to be involved. So what happens? Someone says, if you do it, I will harm you. We get this from the far left all the time. The example that I love to give that back during the Berkeley riots was with the censorship on X or on Twitter at the time. I said, do you think that Twitter fears Carl Benjamin pulling together a horde of classical liberals with torches to go burn down buildings? No, of course not. So when Carl Benjamin says something, they say, we don't care what your threats are. Do you think that they fear the far left will put on black masks with Molotov cocktails and crowbars and come beat and burn things down? Of course they will. So when the far left says, shut them down, they say, please don't hurt me, we'll do whatever you say. When Carl Benjamin says that is immoral and wrong, they say, what are you going to do about it?
Okay.
Yeah, for the pocketbook.
No, exactly.
Technique of the right.
In the city of Birmingham, they were building a mega mosque on a disused building, a massive mega mosque, and there was a big arguments about it when we had the English Defence League. So we got up in the middle of the night and we played the call of prayer on a speaker system to let the community know what's going to happen. Muslims come out, they were right in the middle of the night, and then I went home and I read that a Muslim had attacked a police officer with a brick, but then he had been 200 Muslims with the imam went to the police station and demanded his release, and they let him go. So I read this and thought that couldn't have happened. Yeah. So then, but as leader of the English Defence League, I used to have gold commander meetings with the police. So when we go to cities, we meet with the police hierarchy and we discuss what we're doing. We try and work with them to make sure it's a safe event. So I went to the meeting. I said, lads, can I ask you a question? So I read this story about when we was in Dudley and a Muslim attacked a cop with a brick and you just let him go. They all just looked at each other. I went, tell me that's not right. And they said, Tommy, we've got to weigh up. We've got to weigh up one arrest and one charge. We've got to weigh up a city burning in Birmingham. And if the city of Birmingham burns, so does Bradford, so does Oldham. We saw what happened in 2002. So it's one arrest, Tommy. And I said, so hold on a minute, lads. So who controls the streets of Birmingham? It's not you lot, is it? It's the imam. The imam told you what to do and you've done it. Now, you don't do that for us. And that's why they have a continued threatening force where their leaders say we won't be able to control the roof. You can't upset Muslims because they'll behead you. You can't upset Muslims because they'll blow things up. You can't upset them. And they use that. They use that. They use it. And I used it with it. And I learned from them. I used it in this period. And it worked.
Well,
I watched as they
that's a crazy thing in Brooklyn, when I lived in Brooklyn. And I lived in Bay Ridge, which is it's a pretty Arab neighborhood. It's actually where Linda Sarsour is from. And it's where Osama bin Laden's family would hang out when they were in New York. And I moved into this apartment building and there was a call to prayer and I could hear it all the time. And gradually the church bells stopped. So I wouldn't be hearing church bells anymore. I would just be hearing the call to prayer. And when I moved out here, it was like, oh, wait a second, those are church bells again. And it felt so nice to hear church bells instead of all this chanting. And almost every weekend, there would be these massive anti-Israel protests right on my block where they were like yelling and screaming about Israel. And it was crazy. I was like, why is this going on right here in the middle of Brooklyn in a neighborhood that it's a classically immigrant neighborhood. It had been Norwegian, it had been Greek, it had been Italian, and now it had been Chinese, it had been, Central American, and now it's primarily Arabic. And there's like no room for anybody else now. All the Greeks and Italians and everybody else lived together. It was fine. Central Americans, Chinese, everyone, shop at each other's grocery stores. And you're like, oh, you guys have the good noodles. This is great. And now they don't tolerate living together.
Well, they don't. And the thing is, what Americans need to realize is, and everyone...
Pack it, stack it, snack it with Primo Stackers.
Let's talk about investing better. Whether it's investing better in your time or in life's little luxuries. When it comes to investing your money better, switch to CanStar's Broker of the Year. Invest better with CMC Invest.
One needs to realise is, like the little promo for a movie. That's where we're at the moment. It's the promo. The movie ain't started. When the movie starts, which is gonna, I don't think anyone's quite aware of the danger that's been brought into your nation.
Do you remember what Erdogan said?
Well, the mosques are the barracks.
He said,
"There is no moderate Islam. There's Islam."
And we will. I have millions of people in your countries.
Oh yeah.
Call them to rise up.
He threatened Germany. Shut up. Or we will make them rise up. Yeah. Moroccans make up, I think there's 500,000 Moroccans now, is there and 40% of the Moroccan second generation have been in contact with the police. It's the same situation in Holland. And the grooming scandal, it's not unique to Britain. In Morocco, in Holland, they call it lover boy. In India, they call it love jihad. It's exactly the same issue.
Yeah.
It's going on in every country. If you don't think it's going on in America, right, it's happening. You will have Islamic grooming gangs.
It's not going on here. We arrested them.
Where there's Islamic community, 100%. Now, your Democrat Party will be doing exactly the same as the Labour Party.
Yep.
The same way the Minnesota fraud was allowed and it's covered up, they knew it was happening, they turned a blind eye. They'll turn a blind eye to the American girls getting raped.
You already see the seeds of it with all the Palestinian flags and all of the support for for Gaza.
I think that was great as well. Not great. I think many of these things had to happen. Right? The riots had to happen in the UK. Lucy Connolly was a mother. She got 31 months for a tweet. That had to happen. Now, when the government, after the Southport riots, when they tried to blame it all on me, they made me the scapegoat for these riots. They hoped that people would kill me. I got death threats again. But when they done that, they locked up Lucy Connolly, who was a mother. They gave her 31 months in prison. They televised the court cases. Within 48 hours of people going to a demonstration, they were locked up and put in prison. No one got bail. Everyone got remanded. So they literally politicised the courts and the media as a weapon against the British public. Now, locking up Lucy Connolly, there was Peter Lynch, was a grandfather. He held a sign against the government. They locked him up. He hung himself in jail because of the targeting from the Muslim gangs. Muslims that took over our prison system. The most recent prison I was in was 40% Muslim population, from a population of 5 or 6% Muslims. Now, they've done this in order to strike fear into the British public. The same as January 6th. January 6th was supposed to strike fear into the American public. It was supposed to stop you ever demonstrating again. They could rob elections. They could do what they want. You're too scared to protest because of the consequences of what they will do to you. Look what they've done to all those protesters. Yeah. Now, rather than scare the British public and scare the mothers and grandmothers by what they've done to Lucy Connolly, they lit a fire in the heart of British mums. Our demographic now is British mums and nans at the demonstrations. It's families. It didn't work. And I always say it's in British DNA. We fight. We are fighters. Yeah, we fight. We have forgot who we are, and all we need to do is remember who we are and where we come from. Remember what our forefathers done. Remember what runs in our blood. It's in our blood to fight. And everyone kept talking about when the British Lion's going to wake up. When's it going to wake up? And I've been looking for years, thinking, where is this fucking British Lion? Where is it? It's awake now, and I'm confident it's awake. It's awake. You're going to witness a cultural revolution. You're going to witness a political revolution. The problem is we're running out of time. You can learn. America can look and learn. It's whether you're brave. You have rhinos. You have people who are conservative in name only. You have all the same problems that we had. Yeah, it's whether they're going to stand up quick enough and fast enough before the problem is so embedded in your country as it has become in Europe. You have an opportunity to save America, and
I do think that there is no path to winning for whatever this machine is that's supplanting the West, because it looks like the end result would be more just like the fall of Rome. It's gonna disintegrate. Yeah, chaos is coming. Yep.
But I don't know if Americans are aware. I don't know if you really realise that when you vote for Donald Trump, which was supposed to be a vote to save America, that's far bigger than America. It was a vote to save Western civilization.
Yeah.
if you don't survive, if you don't have legitimate elections, if you don't have free speech here, there's no freedom anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We don't have it. We live in a post-free speech era. Do you know when I heard J.D. Vance's speech? You know, recently Rubio in Munich. When we hear these speeches coming out of the American state, telling our European politicians that we need free speech as people, do you know how much an uplift this gave all of us? I felt like we were losing. I felt like we had no hope. Elon Musk literally picked me up off the ground. Yeah, I fled the country. I was sat in Spain. I was demoralised. I was beaten. We'd lost all social media. We didn't have a voice. And then Elon Musk went, boom, go on, boys. There you go. Have your voice back.
You know what it is? Elon's got a chip on his shoulder. He creates the best electric car company in the world. Tesla sound like hotcakes. Everybody loves it. He played the game the way they said to play it, and he became the richest man because of it. And what did they do? They exclude him from these events. They tax him. They bar his pay packages. And I think finally he said, it's a big club and you win it, even when you're Elon Musk. Because it's not about being rich. And this is funny, there's a meme where someone...
Andrew is supposed to come at 11. That's why I was late going live today.
And said that...
But I just want to make sure I catch him, because where I live, there's not many areas around here that has mobility scooter repair.
That Elon is more in line with the working class than the billionaire elites. And the liberals look at that like a joke. No, the issue is if you are a globalist, World Economic Forum elitist, you are likely going to be wealthy and in the circle. And if you're outside that and gain power through other means, you are still never going to be welcome in. I think Elon personally is offended that he has done so much good the way they described it, and they still treat him like crap and try and strip him of his resources So he says, I'm going Trump.
That guy is Julius Caesar, is Elon Musk. If they try and take his money with legal lawfare, you will see him use the force of technology around him to overthrow this system. So he's the real.
I don't think he'll be remembered for putting rockets up into space. His place in history is free speech. He has single-handed everything that you're witnessing happen in Britain. When you watch, and I believe it's coming, I believe revolution's coming in Britain, I believe the people are awake. They wouldn't have been without Elon Musk. None of us would have been. We wouldn't even have a chance.
But hold on, people need to
We've
remember.
got a chance now.
People need to remember, like when Meghan Murphy was banned from Twitter for saying men aren't women, though. People need to to remember. You could not say don't wear a mask on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The power dropped out of it. And so I got a guy coming over to take it back to his shop and fix it. Until he does, I'm basically crippled. I can't get out the house.
You couldn't even say, I believe the coronavirus came from the coronavirus lab across the street. They were banning you left and right, demonetized, censored, and it was only ever in one direction. But Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter shifted the market balance and all.
Okay, guys, I'm out. I'll be back to normal tomorrow, guys.
All of a sudden,
God
Alex
bless.
Jones was back. Eventually, Nick Fuentes was back. And this put a tremendous pressure on the other social media platforms where they said, we will lose the market battle if we do not ease up. And guess what ended up happening? I believe it is wholly because